Melissa Bell. Man the firewalls at the European Central Bank. The conversation we're about to have is no longer just about Greece. We're looking at Spain, the Eurozone's fourth largest economy. According to the Reuters news agency, lawyers in Berlin and Brussels have been furiously combing through the fine print of European treaties to see how Madrid could get money from the Eurozone's rescue funds without the stigma of a full economic adjustment program. That semantic juggling follows last week's clear message from the Spanish Prime Minister.
There'll be no rescue of the Spanish banking sector.
This Tuesday, though, Mariano Rajoy's budget minister calling for cash from Europe's institutions. The finance minister has since said everything's fine, well, at least for the next 15 days. It's indeed all of Europe's financial system that's on edge. By the way, Commerzbank, one of 6 German lenders, downgraded this Wednesday by Moody's. And again, it's in relation to that crisis throughout Europe, and Europe's leaders saying they're working now on a master plan. But it wouldn't go into full effect until 2018. So, how do you put out the financial fire at this juncture? And can you build a better Eurozone? Today in the France 24 debate, it's SOS Spain. And with us to talk about it, Mark Dean of the Bloomberg News Agency. Welcome back, sir. Welcome to Christophe Paillard of the Paris-based Choiseul Institute, also the author of The New Economic Wars. I know a previous book of yours is Spain, What Strategy for the 21st Century. It was back in 2008. It was one of those strategies investing in real estate.
Well, it's mainly on the economic and industrial strategy in Spain.
Okay.
But, you know, you've got things I wrote which are now very obvious about, the economic situation in the country.
And we'll get back to those in a minute. Benjamin Coriat teaches economics at the University of Paris at Villetaneuse and is a signatory of the Appalled Economists Manifesto. Thank you for being with us, sir. We have to translate that from the French, les économistes atterrés, the appalled economists. Yeah. The France 24 debate, where you can always weigh in on the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter. You can find us at François F24. Before we talk about Spain, let's just talk with so much pressure building throughout the past couple of weeks. The markets up sharply this Wednesday, nearly 2.5% in Frankfurt and Paris, more than 3% in Milan. Mark Dean, what's going on amid all the bad news? Why are the markets suddenly jumping? And we had the president of the ECB saying he's not going to lower interest rates as well.
Well, it's markets are always moody, and I wouldn't read too much into, a one-day rally. I think that the ECB did say today it considered cutting interest rates. That was news, and essentially the ECB has said it's ready to act if necessary. So, you could interpret those things either way, but I think that the general idea that the ECB will be there if it's needed is helping things. And all this talk of a possible, a second plan for Spain, or lawyers poring over documents to see how to do it, that puts people in a good mood.
Puts people in a good mood, but you're right, it isn't about one day. It's about the long term. Spanish stocks down more than 60% since 2007. The budget minister, Cristobal Montoro, Tuesday saying the amount needed by Spain's banking systems, quote, not very high or excessive. But he does say his nation needs help from Europe's institutions. This Wednesday, the finance minister, in effect, saying the opposite.
Once again, I repeat, there has been no question at all about a bailout or rescue. There have been questions regarding Spanish banks, and as I have explained before, with the roadmap I already told you about. I think the Spanish Treasury will meet all of its objectives.
Will meet all of its objectives. Do you agree with that?
It's difficult to know. Well, they said, the national government in Spain, that they needed very quickly something between 50 and 100 billion euros. But we still don't know exactly what is the state of the financial system of all the banks, and especially more the regions in Spain, because you've got a huge part of the public budget, which is in fact based inside the different region in Spain. Yeah, very decentralized. But
And do you think that, like with Greece, we're going to have unpleasant surprises when we comb through the books?
No, it's not on the same scale. Things are much clearer in Spain, but the problem is that we still don't know what's going to what's going to be the real damages to the economy of the situation in many regions. For example, a lot of regions in Spain, such as Valencia, are bankrupt. So, in fact, the amount of debts in all these regions is now taken by the central government. So they are going to be confronted with huge problems very, very quickly.
Benjamin Colliat, again, the finance minister saying, we don't need any help. We're going to meet all our obligations. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Do you think that...
No, I think they need help, no doubt about that. But one point I can agree is that it's not a so big issue. Something like let's say 50 to 80 billion euro is not a so big problem. It's a problem. Of course, we have other questions behind. If we look more deeply in the history of the economy, but for the moment, what they need, let's say 100 billion. Okay, it's not so much. The problem is we are kept in institutional lock-ins. And 100 billion is now a very big problem because no institution has the possibility, just the legal possibility, to bank for that. This because the institutional organization of the Eurozone is completely organized in such a way that they cannot face such a crisis. In any other country, the central bank it, and it's finished in a few days. And because we are in these institutional constraints, we are creating more crisis on the crisis. This is my view.
Martin?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you could call it institutional constraints. You could call it politics. You know, to a certain extent, there is money there available. However, you know, it requires the Spanish government to go and ask for a bailout. That means loss of sovereignty, that means conditions applied by its European partners. They don't want to do that. That's why Spain is looking for a direct injection of funds into the banks without passing by the government. The Germans don't want to do that. They don't want to give up conditionality. So, you know, what you have is, it's about power, it's about politics.
And this explains why tiny Cyprus on Monday, when they say they might need a bailout, that's enough to worry the markets in a big way.
Well, the bailouts add up. I mean, you know, that's definitely not good news. But I mean, I don't think that Cyprus is really the focus. Greece and Spain continue to be on the front line of this thing.
I agree with you. It's a question of politics. And what is the politics behind? The politics behind is to put the debt in the hand of the markets. And this has completely failed. The market was supposed to discipline the public debts. It has done nothing during years from 2001, the introduction of the euro, to 2008. Spain could raise money at the same rate that Germany, than Greece. So the role given to the market has not been played. And after, with the crisis, on the contrary, we had this reaction. So the question is a political question. Put an end to the story that the market are able to discipline the market. Because the history, the facts have proved the contrary. They are unable to do that. And they are unable to face crisis because now they have closed their doors to the states. So we need another institutional organization of the Eurozone.
The Spanish, well aware that this is more than just a semantics battle, structural adjustments, that's the term we've been talking about. What that means, in effect, would be the suits from Brussels, the IMF and the likes, getting to fly into Madrid, combing through the books, and that makes it an issue of national sovereignty and pride.
If there were European funds, they would depend on conditions provided by Europe. That means European funds will have consequences on Spain's economy, and we need to discuss these conditions properly.
The situation in Spain, here in France, we're feeling the pinch. We've got unemployment, at 9%? In Spain, it's 24%.
Yes, and it's soon going to be 25, and you've got about, well, for the people under the age of 25, it's around something like 48%. Depends on the area, in fact. You've got huge differences between the different regions in Spain, so the level of unemployment is very high in the southern parts of the country, such as Andalusia, Extremadura, Murcia, but it's on the rise everywhere. So, in fact, it's a problem for the whole Europe because Spain is not Greece. I'm not saying that Greece is, insignificant, but the level of Spain obliges us, in fact, to move and to do something probably with the Central European Bank. Because if nothing is done, I mean, it's the end of, the European Union and the euro. I mean, the way it works. Because Spain has 5 or 6 times the size of the Greek economy, for example. It's one of the main commercial partners of countries such as France. So, in fact, if Spain is bankrupt, and, well, soon it's going to be, the case for other countries such as Italy, and at the very end, it will go to France, to Germany, and to the whole Europe. So it has to be stopped, and to be stopped now.
That cascade effect we mentioned at the outset, Mark Dean, about 6 German banks being downgraded by one of the credit rating agencies. Do you get a sense that all of Europe's already feeling that cascade effect? We're also seeing comments from the British Prime Minister and the U.S. President about Europe's economy.
Well, I mean, that cascade effect has been there right from the very beginning, right from the start of the crisis, where people were saying, well, you should get in there and say you've got a problem in Greece, and it's just reassure the market, say it's going to be taken care of. I mean, it would have been a lot cheaper at that time just to say there's going to be no problem, there's going to be no default, and we'll do whatever it takes, and actually mean it. Here we are, 2.5 years down the road, and we're still dealing with that situation. I mean, feeling it. I don't think that voters, consumers in France and Germany and other countries like the Netherlands and so on have really felt anything yet. But it's enough of a cascade effect that Obama's feeling it, that David Cameron's feeling it, as you say, and it goes well beyond Europe.
But listening to Benjamin Coryat there a minute ago, you have the sense, Mark Dean, that it's only really now, even though we're 2 years into the sovereign debt crisis, that there's really the realization that Europe's institutions just can't handle it.
Well, I think you talk to a lot of people who work in the markets, and they think that, the politicians still don't realize it. We're still sitting here pulling our hair out over the same sort of issues we were talking about 2 years ago. I think that's a little bit difficult. This is a little bit hard on the politicians. They've got their own sort of constraints and interests, but it is certainly frustrating, and it is probably especially frustrating, I think, from the point of view of the American government to watch this situation, to which they see obvious solutions for not getting resolved.
Benjamin Coryat, give us some good news here. Are they finally getting it in Brussels?
In the short run, I don't know, because the politicians, on this I agree, they give the impression that they don't realize. But on the middle term, let's say, something has to be done. I perfectly agree with you.
Which politicians? When you say the politicians don't realize?
The politicians in charge of finding solutions. That is to say, among the politicians, I count Mario Draghi. The central bank is not a technical institution. It's a very political institution. But in the middle run, I think that the institutional mapping of the Eurozone will change. No doubt about that. And what they are saying now, building a banking union with the possibility, it's not accepted yet by Merkel, but she's on that way, with the possibility to directly bank the recapitalization of the banks through direct fundings, not through debt, is one way out of the mess we are in now. There are other elements, but at a certain point, we call it Eurobonds or in any term, we need to socialize one part of the debt. Otherwise, there is absolutely no issue. Germany is resisting to this for reasons that we can understand. But if Germany wants a single money, they have to move on that direction. So I think that at the end, we will move on this direction, yes.
You mentioned Eurobonds. Tuesday, before the Spanish Senate, was the very first time that the Prime Minister Rajoy actually came out in favor of Eurobonds. The current Spanish government, how are they handling all of this?
Well, it's not simple. It's a bit as in Germany, you know. The central government has to take into account the regions. For example, Angela Merkel is obliged, to take into account the position of the different lenders. In Spain, I wouldn't say it's a completely similar situation, but you've got common bases. So Mariano Rajoy has to take into account the position of, the different presidents of the different regions, which are from different sides. You've got, the nationalists in Catalonia, you've got socialists in Andalusia, you've got the right in many areas such as Castilla. And the problem is that no one really knows what to do.
When Rajoy, for instance, last week says that we won't need a bailout after the Bankia coming up with a 15 billion euro shortfall, politically, is that a smart move on his part?
Well, they are obliged to move because they cannot handle it for very simple reasons. Well, if you look back about the situation in Spain 5 years ago, we knew that the population was indebted at a level of 120% of the GNP. That was a very high level of debt for the population. The commercial deficit was more than 60 billion euros a year in Spain for years, which is really a lot. And so we knew from a long time that Spain had a problem. In my book, published 5 years ago, I'm not a wizard. I just saw the figures and what was happening in the country, and going there very, very often, you could realize that many factories in the country were closing, that the industry was disappearing, a phenomenon we know in France, for example. I don't know if it has something to do with the euro, but nowadays, unfortunately, I don't know how Spain could handle it in a corner, and because it's not feasible. So it has to get some helps from the other countries of Europe. There's no other way.
All right, we're going to look at that help, and we're going to look at the long-term plan when we come back. This is the France 24 debate.